A room full of scantily clad women, the Turks, and Constantinople. It's time for the top 10 messed up things that happened in the Ottoman Empire. Number 10. The end of an era. 1914. A super important dude in Sarajevo got capped in the back of his convertible. Some people are super cool about this, and others are not so super cool about this. So uncool, in fact, that they want to try out all the new fancy weapons and gadgets from the state-of-the-art technology that they've been stockpiling for years. The Ottomans, seeing that their empire was in a decline, saw an opportunity to solidify their place in Europe, strengthen their empire, and maybe just take some stuff from weaker countries. I hear Arabia has lovely sand and oil this time of year. So, how do we achieve victory, some Ottomans thought to themselves. It makes most sense to really join the stronger side, so that way we can almost guarantee our victory and be sitting at the right end of the negotiation table. Germany, Austria, Bulgaria, and the Ottoman Empire would form the Central Powers during the First World War. It went very well for the Central Powers for about 5 minutes, before the whole thing went cow udders up. Germany was bogged down in the east and the west, Austria was having a difficult time with the Russians, the Ottoman Empire learned that building railways through someone else's country to take their stuff isn't very cool. When the smoke settled, the once mighty and powerful Ottoman Empire dissolved. Hundreds of years of great wealth and conquest gone within a few short years after World War I had ended. It's almost as if they shouldn't have gotten involved in the first place. Number 9. Execute Order 66. When you get big like the Ottoman Empire, you need protection. You need something that's really gonna protect you. The United States has the Navy SEALs, the British has the Special Air Service, and I have a collection of 80s movies that's so nerdy it protects me and chases off any cute girl who comes near me. But the Ottomans were thinking ahead by introducing the Janissary Corps, a unit of elite troopers who were the first modern standing army in Europe, paid regular salaries, disciplined, and was one of the first militaries to have extensive use of firearms. Completely loyal to the Sultan, the Janissaries were a formidable fighting force. What happened to the Janissaries, I hear my bumblebees asking? Well, it's not so nice. A messy political climate was going to disband the Corps. Not liking the replacements coming in after the Janissaries, they revolted, which led to something known as the Auspicious Incident, where the barracks burnt down and 4,000 Janissaries lost their lives. Any remaining Jedi were hunted down and destroyed. Sorry, I meant Janissaries. Watched too much Star Wars in preparation for Boba Fett. All jokes aside, that was pretty cruel. You shouldn't burn people down like that, man. Not so cool. But the comparison between the two, it's there. Star Wars is cool. Number 8. Where art thou, brother? Kings will be kings, and the male patriarchy will be the male patriarchy. You want your dynasty to continue? Then you need a male heir. Like most European kingdoms, this is just how it goes. The Ottomans were no different, except maybe their version of the royal family game. See, the Ottomans like to compete for the throne, meaning if you got brothers, you're gonna have to fight them for it. But not like the fight over the Xbox controller, no, these brothers would be fighting for life or death, oftentimes and having a lot of bloodshed in order to determine the next ruler. In one extreme case, one sultan had his infant brother strangled to make sure his spot on the throne was secured, which is totally a normal human, kind-loving thing to do. I'm happy to say we no longer do this, right? Number 7. The Air Factory. Now this makes sense when you think about it. Ottomans had siblings duking it out in the streets and cradles because of harems. Relax, late night users of the internet, it's a little bit different than what you think that means. Okay, yes, it was a room full of women and ladies of the evening, but these women actually held some political power. An example of this is an extremely influential time for these women that became to be known as the Sultanate of Women. Mothers of sultans often helped choose women for their sons, which I'm sure is the worst blind date ever, and once the women were pregnant, they were no longer permitted to be with the Sultan. That child, if born a son, would take a position with his mother in governing a province. There's a lot of rules to this thing, and pretty messed up, but I think if there's something to take away from this, like we should do with all history really, is when you make the succession of your country messy, the politics get messy, and when that happens, you're at the risk of revolution. Number 6. Classic humanity. Here I am again talking about YouTube's least favorite S word. I'm here to give you the buzz in history, and that's just how it goes. Probably the worst invention that we've ever come up with since war, but alas, it happened, and it happened in the Ottoman Empire too. It was pretty easy to get rich off the backs of those you whip. What's so messed up is how long it lasted. I'll give you a second to figure out how long. Go ahead. Guess what year it ended in? 1908. Yeah, they kept it going until 1908. While the anti-S-word movement had done their best to remove this heinous activity, it is speculated that it continued up until the 1930s, specifically the trade and sale of women for the deed of deeds. Now you know something's messed up when that outlives your empire. The Ottoman Empire was dissolved shortly after this, during the First World War. Number 5. Semper Fi. Okay, you've traveled back in time, you said to yourself, hey, I played tons of video games. I love ancient civilizations. I too wish to be a part of a massing army where we will vanquish our foes and gallantly fought battles. Once we reign victorious, we shall celebrate with a feast of grandeur and wine to soak our troubled souls. I am so pleased with the display of the enemy's blood that I am not even going to bathe for a week. Au the contraire, my chivalry late night gamers. The Ottomans were quite the opposite. The Janissaries were an elite force, but the officers in the military had very strict rules. When setting up camps, there was to be no consumption of alcohol. A strict rationing and sanitation was to be very important. You'd think how tough being an army like that would be? How far a little rest and relaxation will go. Come on, lighten up, guys. Number 4. The rifle or the pen. When the Ottomans had taken Constantinople, it was treated as an absolute win. And for the Ottomans, it kinda was. For every Christian still in the city, not so much. A lot of them were killed, or sold into the situation that Anakin Skywalker left Tatooine for. As their empire grew, they began to take children at a young age. And when I say take, I mean take kids that weren't exactly theirs to take in the first place and convert them to Islam. And give them 2 choices. You're either a politician or you're gonna be a soldier. The politicians surprisingly reached some higher levels of power, but now if this were me, I know I'd end up in the army. I was never too bright. This actually kind of makes sense though. The idea was to create an army of completely loyal soldiers to the Sultan and government bodies that everyone could trust. Cruel, but effective. Number 3. Jailhouse King. So eventually people in the Ottoman Empire were not okay with brothers impersonating Abel and Cain. After all, this bloodshed is rather pointless. There's gotta be a better way to choose the next ruler of this empire and still keep everyone alive. How about house arrest? The solution to solve the next heir and to have brothers not be unalive was to keep them in cafes. No, not coffee shops. Lavish prisons for princes, to be exact. Cafe literally translates to cage, and it's where the heirs spent their time locked up, away, safe from harm. Not allowed to leave, but allowed to have female visitation if you catch my drift. It sounds like a good idea, but locking up somebody for long periods of time then expecting that person to rule a country that they barely know or seen is kinda messed up. Also, no streaming services and Wi-Fi would make that the worst day ever. I'd give this place 2 stars, man. Number 2. Impressive run. Okay, yeah, the Ottomans did some messed up stuff. I called the chief again last night, and he said it wasn't it. But that goes for all civilizations of the past. What's really messed up though is how long the Ottoman Empire lasted. From medieval times to the earliest 20th century, which is pretty close to the modern era. Over 600 years of conquering the Balkans, Middle East, North Africa, and the Caucasus. Like I've said before, you don't get that big and powerful without breaking a few eggs to make your omelets along the way. I am generalizing, but the Ottoman Empire was one of the most powerful empires to ever exist, and one of the longest. Encompassing roughly 20 million square kilometers at its peak, had a population of 35 million citizens. Number 1, a man you can trust. Okay, so room full of scantily clad women has to be protected, right? I mean, come on, who's gonna help? You need someone strong, obviously, but you also need somebody you can trust. Someone who will not fall for their devilishly good looks and try to take one of those wives away from your harem. Good thing the Ottomans had eunuchs on speed dial, or rather just had a lot from pillaging other nations and just kinda kept them around. But as silly as it might sound, it does make sense. How could a man be tempted to bed with a woman if he's missing his long John Silver? Right? That's gonna wrap it up for today, guys. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe here at Bumblebee. My socials are linked down below. I've been your host, Big Ched. Stay sweet, my little honeybees. A unit? A unit, not a unit. What am I saying? Yeah, it's and execute order 60. Is it? I mean, my impression's not that good. I try. Kings will be kings, and the male patriarchy will be the male patriarchy will be the male.